Good evening, folks. This is Andy Pedraza with Special Effects Academy. We're on the start of the week session in the Forex trading room for July 11th, 2021. We will be going through our standard agenda, look at the prior week's results, our currency strength meter, fundamental announcements, major pairs analysis on the daily charts, any setups we see in progress, and a few words in conclusion. Starting with the long-term ledger, we had a little bit of a downturn week as a few trades did close against, but more importantly, we do have trades still open that are starting to move in the right direction. The secret to Forex trading and trading in general is to hang on to your winners, even if it takes a bit of time for them to fulfill, and let your losers go at whatever your stop loss was. So that's what we're doing right now. We are slightly negative, a little bit under 10%, but again, that's just the way the cookie crumbles. So stay tuned in the following weeks for a turnaround expected, given again what we see the market is starting to do right now. Intermediate term ledger also taking a hit this week. Again, unfortunate, we have to start trading this account a little bit different as we go into recovery mode. The long-term account has been shining for quite a while, the intermediate not as much. And the short-term ledger is actually up a bit this week as we did close out trade in our favor. Still, we're not out of the woods yet, but it is starting to move in that direction. Notes and opportunities for improvement. It was a very bouncy, if ultimately sideways market. We do have some trending in the process of confirming direction, which I alluded to in some of the previous slides, particularly the one dealing with the long-term account. The COVID Delta variant is starting to make headlines with new lockdowns being discussed, even as countries like the UK are talking about reopening fully as early as next week. I think the 19th is the target. This Delta variant is starting to increase the rates of infection and hospitalization, and the UK seems to be driving by the seat of their pants. So I would not be too surprised if they did reopen and then very quickly shut down again. Same thing is happening in other parts of Europe, and here in the US, we are, or rather, not we, the government is pressuring for increased vaccination, trying to hit their targets at the same time as we are starting to see that Delta variant make an appearance. So anything can and will happen. Just be advised that all these things are an ever-changing panorama. Young people are starting to move back into cities, and they are driving up rents as much as 40% in some markets, according to the reports I've seen. That is rather surprising, but I guess people's memories are very short these days, as well as their attention spans. But in the midst of a pandemic, the last place I would like to be would be in a city where I'm packed elbow to elbow with other people, and I really can't control who gets in my face. So I'll stick to the countryside and my life as I've lived it for the last 20 or so years, and carry on. That doesn't make me immortal or anything like that, but it does, I think, give me a better chance. And corporate minimum taxes are also being discussed globally. What they're trying to do is do away with a lot of the tax shelters where companies set up shop and avoid paying taxes for income that is not made in these countries necessarily. For example, Apple is registered out of Ireland, if I'm not mistaken. And of course, iMacs, Mac Pros, iPhones, iPods, everythings are sold around the world. But everything flows back into the Ireland Corporation, and they are not paying any significant taxes there. They've got a pretty sweetheart deal, which was Ireland's way of saying, come here, set up shop here, and we'll treat you nicely. I'm not sure what Ireland is getting out of it, presumably something, but anyway. Globally, the major governments, and by that I mean the G7, maybe the G20, are trying to increase these or do away with these tax shelters so that there would be a minimum tax. And at the same time, the developing countries, which are often the ones trying to act as tax shelters and incentivize investments in their countries, are fighting this tooth and nail. So too soon to tell how this is going to play out, but it is the news of the week. And of course, in the stock market, earnings season is starting, where companies deliver the results for the last period. And of course, that always has the ability to impact the markets. Relative strength meter for July 11th, the week that just ended, really. So we have a few key winners and losers. The euro gained overall. It did lose ground against the pound, the yen, and the Swiss, but it gained just as much against the other currencies. So we're going to call it a win, though it's more closer to neutral than to a win, but still. The dollar is dropping again, but also managed to beat the Canadian, the Australian, and the New Zealand. The pound, one of the clear winners of the week, beating every currency except the yen and the Swiss. And the yen, another clear winner, making out well against every other currency except the Swiss, where it came out even. The Canadian, the big loser, losing out against every other currency out there. The Swiss, another of those winners, being a winner or neutral in the one case. And the Australian and the New Zealand in absolute collapse, managing to beat out only the Canadian. Fundamental announcements for this week. We've got the Reserve Bank of New Zealand's interest rate decision on Tuesday evening. We've got the Canadian interest rate decision Wednesday morning and the employment change out of Australia that evening. On Thursday, we have the Bank of Japan's interest rate decision, which we are going to trade live. All the ones with the arrows on it are being traded live. But with the Bank of Japan's interest rate decision, I have no confidence that it's going to come out at 11 p.m. They haven't met their schedule in more than 2 years, I think, and counting. So it's probably going to come out closer to midnight, and we're not going to stick around for that. So we'll probably set up some trades and get going, or they might surprise me and actually put out the announcement on time. Anything can happen. With that, we move into the charts. We've got oil still booming, close to $75 a barrel as the week ended. And moving on to the currencies, again, the dollar made out pretty well. It didn't really move much against the euro as the market turned around towards the end of the week. So we had more of a neutral situation with the euro dollar thanks to Thursday and Friday. But still, the trend is in the dollar's favor, has been for a few weeks now. Pound dollar, same thing, ending up very neutral as the dollar went backwards on Friday, but it's still a win. USD/JPY also going as usual contrarian, so the yen gaining strength. The yen gained against everybody else this week with only a bit of a retrace on Friday. The CAD is in degradation right now, so it is breaking trend lines. It's officially giving us a long signal, which we are taking advantage of, and we'll see how far up it goes. But right now, it's broken every level of resistance it had on the diagonals, including the Ichimoku cloud, and now we're looking at different horizontal levels of resistance as it makes its way up. USD Swiss is dropping in the Swiss's favor. So another one where the dollar didn't quite win, but it is being stopped by support, could still go in either direction. Aussie dollar is in the dollar's favor, as we'll see with the Kiwi as well, with a bit of a retrace on Friday. Same thing here with the Kiwi, dollar winning out with a bit of a retrace on Friday. Aussie Canadian still doing its sideways movement. Euro Swiss is breaking support. We'll have to see if this week it managed to stay below that level and continue heading down. This is not a huge move. The ratio, or rather the scale on this chart, is a bit skewed thanks to a few larger candles in the recent past. So that's not as big a move as it looks like. It's maybe 100 pips. That's maybe less than that. Euro pound continues moving sideways right above support. Euro JPY breaking, another one that's breaking support on the diagonals, and we have just a bit of a retrace on Friday, but everything is still pointing towards a trip downstairs. Euro Canadian breaking resistance for the first time in, well, ever in this chart. We can see that that trend line has never been challenged until now. So it's been broken and was in the process of being tested on Friday. Could still go either way, but the way the CAD is behaving, I wouldn't be surprised to see a breakout towards the top happening this week or any of the weeks after, but it might be happening very soon. Pound JPY is still near the top, but now showing signs of weakness. We do have one trade open on the pound JPY, and that will probably be taking us out at some point, unfortunately. But we've got to stick to our guns and wait to see how this plays out. It did do a nice bit of a recovery on Friday, but it's now below support, well, now resistance, and it is crossing the clouds, so not looking good. Aussie JPY breaking support, doing a significant retrace on Friday, but not going back to where it was. So it's still ending the week extremely bearish. And again, we did say that the yen won out against every currency out there. Euro New Zealand is still sideways in general, but a huge move on Thursday, moving all the way up. And then obviously Fridays being a good day for a retrace, it went back to the midline of that sideways channel. Pound Canadian, the Canadian, of course, in a rout. It has broken through resistance, broken through the Ichimoku cloud, and is now trying to make its way back towards the top. Not sure what's ailing the Canadian among the brilliant boom in oil prices, but there you go. Pound Swiss, very sideways, big drop on Thursday, but recovered most of it on Friday on the retrace. Pound Aussie is breaking the topmost level of resistance, so we're officially in a bullish movement, a breakout, and we will be trading it accordingly. That's it for the charts on the setups in progress. The pound is still doing its strength play, but it is showing signs of wear on some of these crosses. The USD is more sideways than anything else, and I still see a strong chance of weakness on the horizon, especially as inflation fears with all the incentives that the Biden administration and the Democrat Congress are promising to roll out. It's not looking good for the dollar, folks. The Australian is sideways with weakness on the horizon as well. And I've been saying this for quite a while, and it's starting to play out. The Australian dollar seems to have peaked. And now we're going to see either a sideways market or a significant retrace, either or. The yen is an absolute disaster right now, which is probably making the Bank of Japan very happy. But that could also turn around very swiftly. Another currency I think has been battered enough. It's the opposite of the Australian. Instead of having peaked, I think this one has touched bottom. It doesn't have a lot more to give. And of course, the Canadian doing a very weird retrace move, seeing that oil is still booming. It's at its highest in more than a year. Indeed, it's at its highest since well before the COVID pandemic started. So this could be a temporary consolidation as people move capital around, but it's starting to look a little bit dicey. And last but not least, a few words in conclusion here. Open minds. Most people I see failing in life do so through having their mouths open too much while their minds and ears remain closed. So stop and listen, folks. I know most of you have only seen or rather heard me talk, but that's because I'm running these sessions. In real life, I do a lot more listening than talking. I already know what I know. There's no purpose to hearing myself talk. And if I keep quiet, I usually learn something valuable that I can certainly use later. And I also rarely have to eat my own words because there's not that many of them out there. So it works out even better. So in everything in trading, but in everything in life, do listen with an open mind. You might be very, very surprised often. And that's it for me this weekend. We'll see you as the week begins for our trading. Any comments or questions before we drop off? Okay, folks, thank you very much. That is a wrap, and we will be back tomorrow evening. Thank you. Bye-bye.